real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back. Nathan Romas with you. Today we are going to be talking about police experiences, preparation, and vigilance. For that, I have Christopher Hoyer on the show. Chris is a retired Phoenix police officer who spent over 20 years on the street. He's seen the worst horrors the job has to offer and now shares his story with others, including first responders, mental health professionals, and various professional entities, sharing his story in hope of saving lives. Chris is the author of the book, When That Day Comes, Training for the Fight, which covers his many experiences and advocates for mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. So welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I did want to kind of start by saying, and for full disclosure, as I was saying offline, I've got your book. I'm about 80% of the way through. I can already recommend it to people because when I was going through it, it reminded me of my favorite movie, Zombieland.
Okay.
And the way you lay out the experiences in there, and they're like quick hitters, it made me think of when he does the rules in the movie. Like he's like, rule whatever. And then he gives like a little synopsis of it. That's just kind of what I had going in my head as I was reading through the book, because there's so many experiences, all very relatable. Like I could think of an example for every one of the things that you brought up.
Yeah.
So very cool. I liked it a lot. And definitely going to finish the last 20 or so % I got. So
Hey, thanks. I've heard that from other guys. They're like, were you writing about me? I'm like, no, I mean, because my experiences, I mean, like I said, they're so relatable across anywhere in law enforcement, even some of the military stuff. People are like, yeah, I was actually thinking that was you writing about me at the time. And I'm going, well, maybe it was, but it was probably subconsciously. So, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. So,
well, and you got so many experiences that are relatable, but there's some in there, even small things like shoelaces, tucking your shoelaces because you catch them on the pedals in the vehicles and stuff, which I've had happen once to me and it never happened again. Is the type of boot I had. The laces are so damn long. So, but one thing you didn't mention, and maybe it's in the last bit I haven't got to, but was wearing gloves. I don't remember that being in there. And someone mentioned to me that's not a big thing in the US where they wear gloves. Is that true?
well, typically, no. I mean, where I was, Arizona, I mean, it was, although I got to say on the big scene, where the birth of the book was, came from, I was actually wearing gloves that day. And I was so angry because after the scene was all secured and I got pulled out of there, I lost them and I never got them back. And I'm like, dude, that's the one time I actually wore them and then I didn't get them back, so, but I'd wear them for, if I knew we were going to be getting into something, because it was really hot there a lot of times,
Yeah.
and more often than not, it sounds kind of silly, but I'd take them off and I'd have to sit on them like I'm sitting on a block wall or something on an Overwatch with my rifle or something like that. And your rear end is burning, so you got to use something. That's all I had was my gloves to throw under me. So, but yeah, we did. I mean, but not really for the cold as much, of course. But
Yeah. I just think it's one of the things I would always teach recruits. And then even in our unit now, so I work with our gang unit, we do a lot of walkthroughs in like all the venues, right? All the sport events, nightclubs. And I'll put my gloves on ahead of time because I'm like, when you get into it, like there's no time to glove up and there's glass everywhere and things are flying. I was like,
yeah.
and you had a good example where you jumped into one of these food trucks and in a fight with somebody and you had to go through the windshield.
Oh man,
And then you just landed and you had glass embedded in your hands. And I was like, oh man, that sucks.
gloves. Yeah, knucklehead. Next time you'll know. That's exactly right. I never even really thought about that, but you're exactly right though. So yeah.
So yeah, if we can just talk a little bit about you, just to start. Some of this is in the book, but for our audience who hasn't heard it, or maybe they aren't going to get the book, but I recommend they do. I just want to kind of run through a little bit about you, and then we're going to talk about your experiences. So kind of incorporate it all into one. But can you tell us, where you're from originally and how you got into policing?
Yeah, so I joke about it. I was born in New Hampshire in 1969. I'm pretty sure if my mom hadn't been pregnant, I would have been born on the lawn of Woodstock because, the flower children and the, peace, love, and all that kind of stuff was going on during the time. Um, so born in New Hampshire, bounced to Virginia, back to New Hampshire, back to Virginia, and then followed a girl to Arizona, which was, short lived, unfortunately. Um, and then once I got out there, I stayed. I wanted to get to California, which I finally did. It took me till I was almost 50 before I finally made it to California, but spent 30 years in Arizona. And, I had this vision early in the 90s. I wanted to be an officer. I'm like, God, I thought it'd be fun and whatever else. And my, at the time, girlfriend turned future wife, now ex-wife, thank you very much. Um, when we got together, she didn't want to be a cop's wife. She was like, no way, I can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And so I let about 4 years go by, and it was still brewing. I kind of felt like, man, there's a higher purpose that I need to be, attending to versus what I was doing, which was basically construction. And long story short, on that part, I was doing a job for a guy, and I got done with the job, and he's like, man, that was a really great job. He goes, you should be a cop. Okay. So I mean, that's exactly how it happened, and it was the funniest thing because it was about April of '96. I started training, and I told, we still weren't even married yet. Um, Told the wife, I said, "Hey, I'm going to be a cop." She's like, "No." I go, "Well, no offense, you got two choices: either support me or you leave." And she
Hmm.
very reluctantly said, "Okay," and she went on with the whole thing. Um, and so it was almost a 2 years to the day, I think, give or take, something like that, that I actually graduated from the academy. It took me almost a year to get all my stuff squared away and all the training, and then started the hiring process, which took another god awful amount of time because I kept failing on the push-ups and failing on the sit-ups and failing the written and everything else, and I kept going back and going back. And I realized that if you quit the first time, you're never going to be successful in a career. So I
Yeah.
tested probably half a dozen times before I finally got on, and then after that, it was pretty seamless. So
Very nice. Well, in your book, so when you're going through this, you detail all kinds of things, like even stuff that is funny. There's stuff that's sad, things that maybe you might be embarrassed about. And I think you say that you preface a lot of the examples with that too. Um, but the book itself, so how did this kind of come to be? What made you decide to do this after your career?
So in my 18th year, I got into what ended up being pretty much my career-ending gunfight. And May 18th, 2016, 18 years on, my buddy Dave Glasser was killed on an ambush on a basically a radio call. It was a very minor call, just a kid, suicidal. I'm never going back. It's going to be a shootout with the cops. And I mean, we hear that all the time. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Turned out this kid was actually dedicated and had planned on, a suicide by a cop that day. And unfortunately, he got his wish and he took Dave with him. Um, that was the day that my life changed forever. The entire trajectory of my life just changed. And
Mm,
2 years of being in a fog and trying to navigate through life. And it was, I mean, we'll get into it more in detail. But I pretty much lost those 2 years. So a year into the whole thing, I'd been off work for quite a while because of the shooting and stuff like that. And I woke up one morning. I don't know why. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got on my laptop and just started writing. And I don't have any idea why. And I just had this vision of like a story I wanted to put on paper.
okay.
Okay, for whatever reason, I don't even remember what the first one was. And before I know it, I swear to God, I couldn't stop. I mean, the thing wrote itself. I
Yeah.
mean, before I had any idea, I had over 1,000 pages already written, and that was the beginning of it all. So.
Very cool. Um, well, and kind of talking a bit about this, do you think, did you go into the job initially prepared in any way? Did you come in with like, I know you said it wasn't like you had this dream of doing it, but were you prepared mentally? Was there anyone who kind of laid out the landscape for you? Or is it just you got into training and then here you go? This is what we're going to tell you the experiences, and they kind of throw you out there in the street. So, did you have anything ahead of time? Any idea?
This is a quote from when I got hired on, and then later on when I had to sit in front of the brass during my entrance interview, if you will, my not my swearing in. Um, and they asked me, like, hey, why do you want to be a cop? And I'm like, and this is my exact answer. Well, I think it's gonna be fun to chase bad guys, carry a gun, and drive as fast as I want.
Yeah.
And they're like, hang on, time out here, kid. I had no idea. First generation law enforcement, totally green. I had no clue what I was getting myself into. Um, and fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I very quickly learned what the culture was. Um, but a side note to that, we're in the academy. It's week whatever, and this other guy from another agency comes, another officer. He's talking about this shooting that he got involved with, and the whole time I'm listening, I'm fascinated. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like Lethal Weapon, man. We shoot a couple guys, we go home, come back, do it all over again the next day. And that was my thought process. But on the other hand, I was thinking that's a bunch of crap. Nobody freaking tries to kill cops, man. That's bullshit, And clearly later on down the road, I very quickly figured out that, yeah, people do try to kill us. And that was a dose of reality that I had not prepared for. So,
Yeah, I find it interesting how, from where you started to 20 years later, kind of where you end, and then you write this book and just all the stuff that happens in between. And it's like, how do you process, when you look back and you have all these examples, how do you process that? How do certain things sit with you? I would imagine writing a book like you did, and for the reasons you did, is a little therapeutic. It helps kind of maybe put some things to bed. Would that be the right way to look at it?
absolutely. Yeah. Not only that, I mean, it was hugely cathartic, but
Mm,
when I met Natalie, my editor girl at the time, I call her, and then now fast forward a little while later to the girlfriend, now to the fiance. Um, we fell in love during the book writing process, and how she describes that is me writing that book is what saved my life. And I think, wow, you know what? I
yeah.
think you're exactly right. Because I mean, all the stuff that I had bottled up because cops are, I'm good, 10 feet tall, pounding my chest, nothing can touch me. Well, that's crap. It does, and it will, which is also why I titled the book the way I did, because it's going to be a matter of time before that day comes, and you need to be prepared for it. And I failed because that's how I was trained. I didn't know any better. And when the dose of reality slapped me across the face, I was like, wow, holy cow, I was doing this wrong for most of my career. So
Yeah. So maybe when you're talking to people, and you do speaking now, you do the public speaking, you do training, uh, kind of maybe big picture. How do you start by talking to people about this? How to prepare themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? Because I think most people kind of know the physical stuff, like get your ass in the gym type stuff. Uh, but when it gets, I think now we're slowly getting to the mental side. It's not as taboo. It's not as people aren't making fun of it, and they're taking it seriously. But when you talk about like more the emotions and then the spiritual stuff, I think that is still like way out there for people.
yeah.
So how do you start those conversations with anybody?
Well, for the public speaking stuff, my opening slide is basically a giant blue line flag that's got several hundred signatures on it, and that's like, this is my dedication to the law enforcement community. And then my next thing is doing a moment of silence for the fallen, and that kind of sets the tone. And I talk a little bit about, what you're talking about, the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual preparation for surviving critical incidents, specifically on that part. And then I'm not gonna lie, for shock value, I play the 999 audio, the officer down audio from Dave's day. And
Okay.
what I want to realize is like, look, this stuff happens every single day. I mean, we're losing cops like nobody's business. It's insane. And I don't care if you work in, Mayberry or Chicago or LA, wherever it is, it could happen, and it's going to happen at some point in time. And by preparing yourself with the mental side, which is what I refer to as playing the what if game. What if this happens? What do you do? What if this happens? What do you do? Down the line, there's a trillion different scenarios you can use with that. Physical side's real easy. I make it clear. I'm like, look, train for what you think you're going to be getting involved with. If you're on patrol and you're going to be getting into foot pursuits, do those wind sprints and practice jumping over walls and all this kind of stuff and whatever else. The emotional side, that's where it starts getting a little bit more tricky, because the emotional side typically is after something happens, generally speaking, not always.
Hmm.
And I made it perfectly clear. I said, look, it doesn't have to be a Dave Glasser where you see your buddy killed in front of your face. It can be a dog. It can be a car accident. It can be a divorce. It can be any one of these things that's going to set you off emotionally. And if you start preparing yourself for these things, playing that what if game beforehand, oftentimes you'll be okay. You will. And one of the slides I bring up is talking about resiliency, which is a whole nother conversation. But people are like, well, I'm not really resilient. Well, if you're wearing that uniform, you're resilient. You're here. You want to be here. You want to be okay,
Hmm.
and you just have to make it happen, however that is for you. And then on the spiritual side of things, to end it, I said, look, man, when you're supposed to be dead, like, Dave was shot at 3 times and killed. I was shot at 3 times and survived. And the survivor's guilt was mounting, in multiple layers. And when you realize that, in my case, what I refer to as Dave saving my life by giving up his life, that kicks in some spirituality that some people aren't prepared for. And if when you accept that, you're like, wow, I should be dead and I'm not. I'm going to start really appreciating life a little bit more, a
Yeah.
lot more in my case. So,
Yeah. I always kind of wonder how we would prepare people, maybe just in general, for life. And if you have kids, how do you prepare them to go out and face the world and all the risks that are out there and the bad things that can happen? And then same thing with police. How do you tell people, the shooting is real and this is going to affect you in these ways after? Because like the physical stuff, we can show you, right? There's that tangibility to it. But when it comes to the whole mental side, emotions, spiritual, that's like how, seeing is believing. So I'm not seeing these things unless somebody's acting something out. But even then, do I really understand what they're going through?
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a difficult thing. One of the things I'm wondering too is on the spiritual side. So this is a topic I've had on here a few times, and sometimes it's a little nebulous. It's hard to grasp, but you actually have a part in the book where you separate the spirituality and the religion side of things, and you talk about the spirituality, but the religion you kind of leave out. And I'm wondering why you did that, and you know what exactly about religion? Like, what are your thoughts about religion?
Well, on the religion side, I was raised with my mom, and she was she's a little sporadic with her beliefs and stuff, because we went from one denomination to another kind of a thing. And unfortunately, I mean, it sounds kind of bad to say it this way, and I would never group any particular religion into one situation. But what I've seen over and over is how she was treated by the religious community, if you will.
Okay.
And it was it just wasn't good. I mean, on several different levels. I mean, I was living with her at the time when I went back to Virginia the second time, and I remember I had this in excess tape, right? And one of the songs on the tape was "Devil Inside,"
Hmm.
and I was 18 or 19 years old or whatever else. I mean, never even occurred to me. But her religious people that came over doing this Bible study or whatever else, they saw that tape and they flipped out. And they literally took all of her stuff, and basically it had, like, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say a seance, but something to that effect, and burned all of her stuff, including all of my cassette tapes,
Oh wow.
because they thought I was some evil. And I'm like, wait a second, this is my introduction to religion. And to fast forward, I've had, unfortunately, again, several of my friends, and I call them friends because they are, and coworkers in my old department, that kind of have this, I believe in God, so I can kind of do or say whatever I want. And for me, that's looking at it from, and they said it, not me. Hey, I'm a very religious person, and I can do this.
Mm.
Well, no, you really, because I'm sure God does not look at it that way. And so looking at from the spiritual side, which is a whole nother conversation, that's where I really, really lean heavily on. So
Yeah, I had a prior guest on, and Matt Domiancic, and he talked about the religion side, and he says, like, I think it's Christianity. There's approximately 30,000 denominations, and I just like I know the mainstream ones like Anglican and Baptist and so on and so forth,
yeah.
and it's like I changed this. I believe in this rule, but not this rule. So I'm just like, okay, well, whatever. But
Yeah.
on the spirituality side, um, the way you kind of contextualize it in the book, I thought was really good. And to me, it just kind of meant more of a realization of your surroundings and how you kind of like take things in and process them. So I thought it was a really good way to look at it. For yourself, like, do you practice in any denomination? Is there, or is it just for you? You kind of do your own thing and just try to be more aware of your surroundings.
Well, I mean, Natalie and I, we try to go to church when we can. It's not often as we'd like to, but that's based on schedules and conflicts and so forth. Um, but we do pray on a regular basis, and I've got this cross that I just got a couple of weeks ago, and this is like my go to now, where I'm
Yeah.
like every time I feel, I mean, even good, bad, indifferent, whatever else, I just start kind of rubbing on it like I'm doing now, and that's one of my little ways to pray a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and just a huge appreciation for life, and even more importantly being alive, right? And taking time to notice all the beauty in the world, because I mean, there's nobody in the world can argue that there's too much ugliness going on,
Yeah.
and that's what most people focus on, right? And I don't want to focus on the ugly stuff. I want to focus on, oh my goodness, Natalie and I live a 10-minute walk to the Pacific Ocean. I mean, for me and her both, combined, that's an absolute dream come true for us. And to have that in our front yard now is like, holy cow, where does that come from? I mean, the heavens and the earth and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can get into this whole deep conversation about it, but where did all that beauty come from? And does it really matter? Not technically for me, no, it doesn't. But I just appreciate that it's there. So
Yeah. You know what? As a cop, I find we're naturally kind of like skeptical of people and so on and so forth. And for me, the religion side, I'm always like, what's this person's angle? Like when they're up there saying their thing. And then the biggest thing for me is when they're like, and God says, give me some of your money. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Like that's not for me.
yeah, right.
I'm not here for the scam part. But um, so just kind of talking more on these subjects here. One of the things that you bring up that I thought was really good point was when you talk about being the shit magnet for the squad, and this you give a lot of examples of how you just you're kind of like you're always in this stuff. You're always nearby. You're like the first car off, or you can just turn a corner. All of a sudden, there's something happening on view. Do you think in police culture, when we give people those terms, there's a few others that you use in the book, like there's some guy on your squad that's like the big, strong guy. So do you think when we give people kind of their roles that they feel obligated to fulfill those roles? So you as being the shit magnet, do you think that maybe that made you take more risks, things that maybe you wouldn't have naturally done, but you're like, you know what? I got to live up to something here. So, do you think that put you in any more danger, or you decided to do things that you wouldn't normally?
No, I don't think so. I think, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed in some of my buddies that are still out there, and I'm not gonna take anything away from them whatsoever, because I understand completely that, hey man, you're living on the beach in San Diego, you're not getting shot at, dealing with the brass. Don't don't tell us how great it is on the other side when we're still in the shit over here, chasing bad guys. But a lot of my buddies are not willing to engage anymore. They're like, I'm going to go sit under a tree. When a call comes up, I'm going to go take the call. I'm going to come back, sit under the tree.
Hmm.
And, I could never, ever, ever be that guy. I'm like, no, you guys hired me to literally use the cliche term, protect and serve. That's what I want to do. And even in my 20th year, I was still out there just humping the streets all day long, every day. And I mean, I think the comp thing. I mean, because a lot of guys do have this. They've got to search for that identity or whatever else. I
Yeah.
never had to do that because I just felt like you guys are paying me to do this job, and I still can't believe it. I'm like, oh my god, I get to do exactly what I said in the very beginning. I get to drive as fast as I want, carry a gun, and chase bad guys. I mean, who gets to do that, right? I mean, it's literally like chasing bad guys in the Wild West. I mean, it was a dream come true, and I took it on board. And the beautiful part about that was because I took such a tremendous amount of pride in what I was doing, and I studied, I studied human nature, I studied policy, I studied all these things, and very, very rarely did I ever get jammed up or doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But because I enjoyed it so much, I think it was just a true love and a true calling for me personally that I didn't want to give it up. I'm like, this is just the greatest thing in the world. In fact, fast forward, if we want to talk about this now, just light it a little bit. I retired in 2018, and I'm in the process of getting hired back on with another agency here, local San Diego. So,
Oh,
because
really?
I'm a lunatic, yeah. So, yeah. Because I truly feel like I haven't given enough to the law enforcement community yet, and I want to go back and start, working shift work for some, no offense to whoever it's going to be, some 25-year-old kid teaching me how to be a cop as an FTO, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll suck it up, whatever. So, but
I find it now when you're off the road for like 6 months, everything's changed. They changed the policy. The computer systems are all different. You really do need you need like some kid teaching you how to do the stuff now. Um, but on that, so talking about like kind of fulfilling a role, one of the things that you did mention too was just about projecting confidence. So you go to some of these scenes and you would give off that projection, right? So you're like, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, I'm cool here, but inside you're really scared.
but
So that's kind of where I thought like maybe this has to do with fulfilling a role. But did you find that a lot of the time, you're getting in gunfights, you're doing a lot of crazy chases and things. So, what is it like most of the time for yourself when you're going through these? Is it like I'm constantly projecting this? I'm, you know, pretending I'm feeling a certain way, but I'm actually the complete opposite. And how does that kind of impact you, as a person, both emotionally, spiritually, in whatever realm it might be?
I kind of, well, I'm not going to lie. It took me at least a year, maybe a year and a half before I finally felt confident enough to be out there solo and doing the job because it's no secret, man. I mean, there's a lot to law enforcement. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fire hose of information, and you got to get it right. Not only for policy, but for the brass and for just safety, making it home every night, and these kinds of things. And for me, I think I had this level of I can't lose because I've got too much to live for, i.e., my family and my mom and everybody else and this kind of stuff. And I did project this confidence. This one of the big things that my agency was all about was officer presence. Really spit shine, clean looking, professional, all this kind of stuff, and that does bode a considerable amount of confidence in your abilities as well. And then when you're not sure, I mean, most of the time, they kind of drill into you. Most of the time is on our side.
Yeah.
So when I felt like I wasn't sure, I'm like, okay, let me take a step back and try to figure this out. And unfortunately, also at the same time, you've got to be quick on your feet because people are asking you questions, and if you don't know, you can't look stupid. I mean, but sometimes we do. I mean, it's just a fact. So I leaned on the senior guys for quite a while. Like I said, my first year and a half or 2 years, before I felt confident enough to be out there on my own doing my thing. And that still took a long time to gain, my way, if you will. Unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I was thrust into reality really quickly because start off my FTO, he sailed through FTO in 6 weeks, and it's normally 4 months. So I've got that pressure. And his first guy that he trained quit
Yeah.
halfway through training. Like, I can't do this. Holy cow! So now I've got my FTO saying, I'm this great rock star, and he was another shit magnet, which is probably why I progressed the way that I did. But then, in my first year solo, I get my first shooting, and it's like, here's a dose of reality that things go bad very quickly, and you better be prepared for that. And I wasn't. I thought I was, but I mean, how do you prepare for that? I mean, you can tell people all day long, this is what it's going to look like. This is what Chris Hoyer says. You got to do it this
Yeah.
way. Well, that's all great, but cops, I mean, you already said it. We're jaded, cynical, untrusting a lot of times. And even with our peers, we're like, okay, yeah, I believe you. Okay, yeah, fine, whatever. But when it happens, that's when the reality hits you. You're like, oh, now I understand it. So which is a really long answer for your question. Sorry, but
No, it's a good answer. What I'm wondering is so you have all these things happen like, right at the beginning of your career and then leading right up to the killing of your friend. At what point in your career uh, did you really start looking and saying, like, was I prepared for this stuff mentally, anyways? And, maybe I do need to start seeking out some help. Like, was there anything before the shooting um, of your friend, or is that like the one incident, and then you're starting to think about these other things?
I think I had an edge up because I figured out very quickly in my career that playing that what if game is what saved my life in my first two shootings. First year on, second year on, I got my second shooting. Um, and I was still, I mean, I was young and full of fire, and I'm like, yeah, look at me pounding my chest. Nothing can touch me. And now I've graduated, to being in the next levels. And this is all the stupid shit that we think about when we're young and dumb. Let's get on. But you're exactly right, though. I really didn't start thinking about my wellness until Dave was killed. And unfortunately for me, it was 18 years of stuff that I hadn't properly processed through. And when people read the book, hopefully they do. Thanks for the endorsement, by the way. Um, 2016 started with me watching an 8-year-old hang himself in a freaking closet. I mean, who does that, right?
Yeah.
And there were three other major critical incidents back to back to back in the first 5 months of 2016. The first time I started to think that maybe I'm not okay was the day that happened with the 8-year-old. I hop in the ambulance with fire, go down to Children's Hospital. Still, I have no idea why I did that. Um, I come back to the station. Luckily, my buddies dropped off my car at the hospital, and cops, they like to joke and do silly shit all the time. And I drive back to the precinct, and I'm driving around the parking lot, and I can't find my truck. I'm like, okay, because obviously my car keys are in the patrol car. So I think, well, they went because the call was really close to our station. I'm thinking they took my truck and drove it over to Circle K or something and parked it and left it there because that's what cops. Do. And I drive around the parking lot two times, and I can't find my truck where it's normally parked. And I tell that story when I speak, and I ask that question, where do you think my truck was? And they're like, and nobody has an answer. And finally, somebody in one of the last ones I said, they're like, it was someplace else. Well, obviously, and the true answer was I hadn't worked at that station in a year. Right. I mean, I went back to my old station thinking this is where I work. I'm 15 miles away at another station. That's when I started to realize, man, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it was a snowball of effects and incidents that pushed me over the edge, especially with Dave. Dave was the catalyst. So
Oh, one of the things that you brought up here too was just kind of running through the what if, and um, some of the I wondered, was visualization a part of this? And it's some of the stuff that you mentioned is kind of like throughout the book, but it's not necessarily about like being arrogant, but you kind of like see the outcome. You're gonna win at the end. Um, how do you incorporate that into what you're doing? Because you're going through like a lot of these critical incidents. You're doing shootings. You're going to stuff where kids die. So how do you see, how do you project like what the end of that's going to be, and kind of in your mind, I guess, as part of the preparation for it is, okay, I might be going to this scenario, but I can see a result, or I'm trying to get to a result at the end. Is that kind of how you visualize it?
yeah, I mean, back when I was going through it, I buried it, which is what most cops do, right? They lock it in a little box and it's there. Unfortunately, like I said, when that day comes, all that stuff's going to come back out on you. And now we're in that. that transition of, hey, you need to get this stuff out as soon as you can and process it and get it off your chest, kind of a thing, whatever that is for you. Um, like for me, it all came out in no time flat after Dave, and I had never considered what it was going to look like when I look back on all the stuff that I had gone through. And looking at it now, I know that, if I've got something, let's say, as an example, I go work for this new agency and day one I get out there and we got to pull a baby out of a pool. I know now what I need to do to fix that for myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to come home, talk to Natalie. I'm going to probably write a story about it, which is what works for me. People are like, why on earth would you want to write a story about that? Because it's a way to get it off my chest. It's to, kind of almost like expel it out of my body on some level. It doesn't necessarily have to go to print or go to see anybody else or whatever else, but it's something I can do.
You're just writing out the thoughts, right? Like it's not, you're writing out stuff in graphic detail, or if that's something that helps you process it. But yeah, you're getting the story out there.
Right. And those are just two small examples of 100 different things you can do. And what I tell people all the time is don't discount the little stuff either, because again, it could be a dog getting hit by a car. If you've got a boxer at home and you see a boxer get hit on the street, that's an emotional trigger that could hit you. And so more likely, what are you going to do? You're going to go home and you're going to play with your dog. You'll be like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're still alive.
Yeah.
But that other dog is still in the back of your mind someplace. And how you process through that is going to be on you. I've got all kinds of examples of stuff that I did then and I still do now, where like journaling is a big thing for me. I've got probably 20 different stories that I've started because I felt like, man, I got to just start
Yeah.
writing something down just to kind of, get it out of my system on some level, whatever it is. Exercise is a huge one. You get, I'm not a big runner, but when I get, really kind of spun up on stuff, I go for a run because even though I hate running, that's the best way for me to get all that out of my system as well. So, and
Yeah.
again, these are just small examples for me. So,
Well, I imagine like, yeah, to go 18 years before you start thinking about things again. I mean, there's a lot of things you're going to forget. And then for some reason, someone says something, you see a certain thing that all of a sudden comes up, right? Uh, I had that even like I'm reading your book and I'm thinking of, oh, yeah, I remember a time when this happened, but it's like, I don't think I've thought about that for, 7, 8, 10 years. So there's
yep,
lots of things that can kind of jog your memory. And then all of a sudden it's coming out. So if you wait 18 years before you put anything down or see somebody to say something about it, yeah, I mean that's a lot of stuff to have come out at one time. Um, for you too, one of the things that you mention a lot is learning from others. So kind of on this preparation side of things, uh, and I find this with myself when I go to a scene or I'm at a call or whatever it might be, I'm watching what other people are doing and just trying to think like, do I do that?
right.
Or, I don't want to do the stupid things that others are doing. So I try to learn from them, but I try to have that self awareness as much as possible. Like, I don't want to be sitting there and being annoying to other people. So, you know, I thought that was a really good thing that you brought up where you're talking a lot about like learning from others and seeing what they do. And then you incorporate those things before it happens to you. So, not just on the physical side, but on those like emotional side and the mental side of things, taking care of yourself, even journaling, like you're saying now, if people are listening to this, right, they can say, well, I should be doing that. Um, one of the things actually, so our National Police Service, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they have a huge study going right now. It's a big longitudinal study that they're doing with the recruits at Depot, so at their initial academy. And they've got them like hooked up to heart monitors and they're checking like how their physiological uh, responses to certain stimulus are. And they have them journaling. And there's like a really cool program they're doing. And they're trying to be more on the proactive side than the reactive, right?
That's huge.
Don't wait till you're at the end of your career before you start putting things down or noticing things. So, for yourself, though, has that always kind of been a big part of your repertoire, is the self-awareness piece and knowing what, paying attention to what others are doing so you don't do it yourself?
Yeah, it's huge. And unfortunately, there's been a handful of times, particularly toward the end of my career where, and I'm like the most chill guy ever. Natalie doesn't even believe I was ever actually a cop because she's like, you're that totally laid back kind of a surfer guy. I can't picture you doing the things you described. But on the other side, there have been times when, you know, the bad stuff finally got to me. And unfortunately, I never lost my temper on the street except for the one time when the guy spit on me, but that's a whole other story.
That's in the book too.
It is. Oh yeah, I was in there. But there have been times when people say the wrong thing to me at the wrong time, and I snap and I freaking let them have it. And that's professionally that's unacceptable, and I know that now. But the fact of the matter is, when you're in this whirlwind of emotions going on, sometimes it's really difficult to shut it down, and sometimes it just comes out, and sometimes it's at the wrong time. And I've seen that with a lot of senior guys, like the senior guys. And I tell myself I'm never going to be that guy because I don't want to. If I look like that, I look like a freaking like a dumbass, and I don't want to be that guy. And then, sure
Yeah.
enough, fast forward, and the fact of the matter is, I don't care how tough you are or how tough you think you are. At some point in time, the stuff's going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
And I remind people also, it's like, look, just to be able to wear the badge and the uniform is a huge level of courageousness that very few people have. So we're all privileged to be able to actually even just be able to do this job.
Hmm.
And and this is what I talk about very oftentimes nowadays, especially with like the younger generation. They're like, well, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. And then the older generation where they're like, oh, screw the cop world, I can't stand it anymore. What I tell people is go back and read your oath of office.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. And I swear, I don't know what happened, but there was some kind of a fire that was lit under me. And, it basically reads, I solemnly swear to uphold the duties of police officer, so help me God, kind of a thing. And then you're sitting in the background investigator's office going, I'll do whatever it takes. We touched on that early on. Do you really understand what that means? You know, I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me my badge and my gun, set me on the street and set me free. Okay, great. Well, here you go. Fast forward 18 years later, when I've buried, at the time, 17 of my buddies in the line of duty, been in 3 shootings and a gunfight, pulling babies out of pools, all the bad stuff that we see. It's a matter of time before it catches up to you. But, and I don't say this is what we signed up for because that's a bunch of shit. That's not what happened.
Hmm.
But we did volunteer for it. And so I say we have to appreciate why we're doing what we're doing. And it's not necessarily for us, it's for the public that we've decided to serve, you know.
Yeah.
So and let's face it, dude, it's fun. It is. It's a ball. It's awesome.
It
So
is, honestly. Like one of the reasons I got into policing is I got a degree in finance and I was working in a bank. And there's nothing wrong with working in a bank. But wow, I found it boring. I couldn't do it anymore. And I was like, I'm out and I'm operational, been operational my whole career. And that's kind of how I'm wired, what I'm geared toward. So, I mean, it's fun. I like being able to get in a car and go wherever I want, when I want. And, there are a lot of fun times and a lot of funny things you see on this job. It's not all doom and gloom.
for sure.
But kind of on that, just talking about the future generations. So, how do you prepare people? Like when you talk to people, if someone comes to you for advice, what are you telling them now to kind of get them ready for what the career might be?
I created this little thing probably about 10 years ago now. I used to ride my motorcycle from Arizona out to California, and a lot of it was just therapy for me because I knew I needed something, to kind of take my mind off of the law enforcement community for a while. And riding to the beach was my go to, right?
Okay.
What I realized over time, the second half of that was if I ever had a questionable situation going on or whatever else, I would literally stop on the side of the road and just write it down or type it into my phone or whatever else. And then I would I'd come back and I'd have all these notes for all these questions that I had, and then I wouldn't answer the questions to myself at the time because I'm alone, but I would give it to one of my most trusted, you know, people. I'd be like, "Hey, let's have a discussion about this." And now because I've presented to them, I've got to face it. I'm like, "Oh man, why did I do that?" But it's really good therapy. But the second half is, and this is kind of where I think that a lot of the younger generation doesn't really understand this. And I want to get into yoga and get into meditation, but this is kind of like a prerequisite to that, if you will. When I get out to the beach, I make a very exceptionally conscious effort to slow down time. Like,
Yeah.
okay, slow down time. And what that does for me is those memories when I'm at the beach before I moved out here are very, very vivid, you know. And if you can incorporate that into your career where you appreciate all the stuff that you do and that you have to do, those memories, good, bad, or indifferent, are going to be healthy for you to move forward into the healing process if that's what you need. It could be healthy for you to just enjoy what you're doing as well. And these are all the Chris Hoyer way. This is what works for me. It might not work for everybody else. I might be thinking you're full of shit. I'm not doing that because I don't want to remember all these kinds of things. Well, I don't. I got news for you, man. Subconsciously, you're gonna remember stuff. It's gonna come back on you at some point in
Yeah.
time. And if you deny it, it's just a matter of time before. And like in my case, I literally lost 2 years of my life because I was being arrogant and stupid. I'm like, no, I'm good. Pat on my chest. And I have a slide when I first start my presentation. I point to somebody in the audience. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And it's always the same answer. I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I hit the button. And sure enough, on the screen, it comes up and says I'm good. And I know my audience. That's how we are as cops. And then I play the audio, and I'm like, "Hey, how do you think you're going to be now? Are you going to be good with this? How are you going to respond to this the day of, a week later, a year later? These are the things you need to start processing now and get it off your chest, get it out of your system, punch a bag, go freaking skydiving, whatever it is, just to get out of this community for a while. So anyway, another long answer. So
No, it's good. I really like that the part where you talk about slowing down. That is probably something that a lot of, especially the younger generation, when they get on the job, slowing down probably not part of their repertoire. And I know it's
it's absolutely acceptable. Believe me when I say I was that guy, 100 miles an hour, 40 hours a week. And I actually asked my FTO sergeant when I first got on, I said, can I come in and work on my days off? And he's like, dude, 20 years is going to come before you know it. No, do your
yeah.
40 hours, go home with your family. And I'm like, no, but I love this so much. And he was right. He was 100% right. So
But even outside of the job too, right? Because you got other things that are going to cause you stress, and whether that's family or you got a second job or something comes up, just things breaking around the house or your vehicle. It's things compound, and you do have to take time to slow down. I don't think people realize that. I know I'm guilty of not doing that because even today, after the recording, I've got to go do all the yard work. I got to go help a friend move, and then I got to go do other things. My day's literally planned out like hour by hour, minute by minute. But I got to find some time in there to slow down and just do whatever I can to relax or think about whatever I need to think about. So, no, I think those are really good points in there. Uh, just as we're kind of coming up to the end of the time, I want to find out, what do you have coming up in the future? So, is there another book on the way? Or are you still engaging in the public speaking side? So, what's coming down the pipeline?
it's the training stuff I do is seasonal, as it turns out. I didn't know. And right now it's all starting to snowball again. So I'm getting a lot of requests to come speak. I'll be in North Dakota next month of all places. I'm like, oh, okay. Which is fantastic. I love it.
A forgotten state.
Yeah, right. And I've never been up there before. And unfortunately, Natalie can't go with me this time. So I'll be up there by myself. But um, and I'm also an instructor here locally for a lot of tactical stuff. So I'm getting a lot of calls that people want to start training and doing all these things. And I'm going, oh man. But the big picture for me is going back to the law enforcement community. So trying to balance that out. Natalie and I are going to get married in July. I've got
Yeah,
that going
congrats.
on. Thank you. Thank you. I do have, like I said, several projects in the works as far as writings go. In fact, a really good friend of mine, she's like, "Hey, you should write a manual on um, like playing the what if game and scenario based
Yeah.
training, for guys that don't really understand what it looks like." So the first day I started writing, I got like 4 pages already written. I'm going, oh my God, this is going to turn into something much more complicated than I anticipated. So I've got that going on. My youngest, my 23-year-old, he's doing something as we speak today, which he won't tell me what it is. It's either military or law enforcement. I'm not quite sure.
Like applying?
Yeah, he's
Oh, really?
testing today as we speak, but he's one of those guys. He's like, I don't want to say anything because it's going to jinx the
Yeah.
outcome. And I'm like, dude, I'm glad you can tell me whatever. So I'm anticipating that, whatever that's going to look like. I've got, I'm like juggling balls all over the place. Plus, I'm working full time for another company that I'm not terribly thrilled about, but that's another conversation. I'm trying to get back into the cop world because that's by far my calling, though. So,
But you need to slow down at certain points.
that's exactly right. And when you're talking about that, I was thinking to myself, there are things that you appreciate, like if you've got a 2-year-old, like with my daughter, God bless her soul, but it's her kid is now going to turn 8 here next month, and whenever I'm there with her, it's always the same thing. Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. Okay, well, you said it 40 times. She ain't going to stop.
Yeah.
All you've done now is make it to where the more you say it, the more she can do whatever she wants. But instead of doing that, and I don't try to explain this to her because she's an adult. She's got to learn her way. Um, so what I like to do is just sit there and just watch the kid play for 5 minutes or whatever else. Slow down time. If I'm walking downtown to where we live or whatever else, and I see, not to sound all like kind of crazy nuts or something else, but I'll see like a tree. I'm like, that's a really cool looking tree. I'll sit there and I'll look at it for a minute. Wow. Appreciate what it is. Or obviously the water, with the dolphins and the seals and the waves and all.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's mesmerizing. And I slow down time and I appreciate what all these things are. Obviously with Natalie, we'll just hug and kiss and whatever else, and I'll scratch her back and keep her happy as much as possible. And I slow down time with her as well, just to appreciate what I have. So
Yeah, I think that's good words of advice. And you know what? I appreciate your time on here. This has been really good conversation. Last thing I always get people to do, say where people can find you, websites, social media. How can they connect with you or check out your work?
I had a website going on. I finally just let it go by the wayside because it was just not working out. I'm gonna probably revamp it here pretty soon. But
Hmm.
welcome to put my email out there. It's chriswarrior46 at Gmail. Super easy. I'm on LinkedIn under my name. I'm under Instagram, last name first and then first name, and then Facebook. I've got 2 different accounts, both under my name. Um, both of the Facebook accounts, you'll see me and Natalie, our picture there together, and it's pretty obvious when you see that. And my LinkedIn and Instagram are full name Christopher, and then the Facebook are just Chris. So if anybody's interested in checking those out, and there's really not that for me, not that much that's all that interesting on there. Natalie, she's the social media queen, so
Yeah.
all her posts are interesting stuff. But
I'll put up the links in the episode description. So if people want to get a hold of you, I'll have a link to your book as well. So yeah, and I recommend people check out the book. It is really good. And especially on the police side, but even someone just trying to understand police or spouses, to understand the world of it. I think it's like, you talk in there like I've never seen people talk in a book, and
heard
just
that,
the way
yeah.
it's laid out, it was really good. So
It's really strange to me because I've had people say it's like I'm reading it to you. I'm like, I have no idea. And then dawn on me. So I'm not an author. I'm not a thing, but I realize I'm like, yeah, but I did spend 20 years writing police reports, so I guess there's some kind of
yeah,
a transition. Um, but people are absolutely, please let them know that they're welcome to reach out to me anytime they got questions, they got concerns, they want to call me out. They're like, I think you're full of shit, whatever else. I want all that. even at my age, I never want to stop learning. I want to continue on with everything that I can contribute to myself and to my relationship and to the law enforcement community specifically, So
Excellent.
yeah. And Natalie's in the background. I got a great editor too, so which is true. So
Yes, give her credit. She helped with the book. So, yeah, I just want to remind people to like, comment, share, get out there, spread the message. And, it was a pleasure having you on here, Chris. If you want to hang on the line for 2 seconds, I'll say bye offline.
thanks, sir. Appreciate it.